Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rabbi Sydney Mintz. This is Cantor Marcia Addy. You want to introduce our incredible ensemble,
We have
Cantor?
a beautiful crew of musicians. We have Dan and Eric and Sasha, and they're going to grace us. And you and all of your voices, you're part of the music as well.
So we're going to begin our Shabbat service tonight by lighting the Shabbat candles, and we're going to invite our B'nai Mitzvah families up to do the honor of welcoming Shabbat with us. And if there's anybody else here, I know that there's family in town, which is really wonderful to have people in town traveling from out of town. If there's anybody else who has a simcha that would like to come up and light candles, please feel free, if you have a birthday or an anniversary or something sweet that is happening, to come up and join us and light candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you so much. We're going to join together on page 20 for the welcoming song Lechadodi to open up our Shabbat together. And of course, we want to say hello to everybody who's joining us from wherever you are out there outside of the sanctuary.
And do we have any people that it's your first time here? Any? Yeah, welcome to you.
Do you want to give the sermon?
Everybody has a Torah to teach.
It's so true. Nobody's taken me up on it in 25 years, but I still have faith. Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Shamor
Zachor v'dibur echad Emanu-El hamiuchad
Adonai echad u'shmo echad V'shemo tiferet v'lithilah
Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מקורך הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה
Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי,
Shabbat
nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha ובתוך עולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We join together on page 24 as we invite the angels who are with us on Shabbat to be with us at this time, our whole community. Think for a second if there's an angel in your life. Maybe they're in this room with you. Maybe they're far away and you're sending them a lot of prayers, a lot of blessings, and you know they're sending them to you. And those are sometimes the people or the spirits that are with us times when we really need them. So we invite Shalom Aleichem for all of the angels to descend upon us on this special Shabbat.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'chuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We continue as we rise together on page 28 for the Baruch Hu. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within him or herself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity. hoping for the higher perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. We turn now to the Shema on page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto
Please be seated and join us for the Ve'ahavta on page 36.
And it is still, I just want to say, it's still such a treat to hear your voices after a long time of not hearing people sing together. Even through your masks, we can hear you, and it's very special. So together. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות להם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We turn to page 40, and the Michamocha prayer is really just about this physical time of year, just before the winter solstice when it is truly at its darkest. And I know we can all relate to that because you get home from school or work at 5 o'clock and it's getting completely dark. And the nights feel much longer because of that darkness. And so when we sing the Michamocha, we're not just talking about spiritual darkness, we're also talking about the pathway through physical darkness. And the story about the Michamocha says that at the darkest point when the Israelites couldn't imagine walking through the water because it had not yet parted and darkness had descended, there was one person who walked into the water and his name was Nachshon. And he has kind of superhero qualities because not just physically, but spiritually, he walked into the water up to the point where the water went into his mouth. And he was walking into the water before the sea split, and the first thing he said was, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, and he walked in, and the water got into his mouth. And so that's why the second time you say it, you say, Mi kamocha, because you're spitting the water out, because he had so much faith that he went in this very dark place. And so at this time that we sing the Michamocha, I want us to each think of somebody from Jewish history, who is your light, or somebody who had a lot of koach, a lot of strength. And I'll just share that for me, that person, strangely, was always Judah Maccabee. And Judah Maccabee was such a big deal to me. His last name is Hammer, and he brought light in the darkness. He was the hero of what story? The Hanukkah story. Strangely enough, during Purim, when everybody else was dressed as Queen Esther, I was dressed as Judah Maccabee. Says a lot, I know. But I like to think about this 4,000 years of history in the moment that we're in right now, where we feel a lot of darkness, how do we reach back into that history and find the people who seemed mystical or supernatural or just had a lot of koach, a lot of strength? So we micha mocha for them.
And this melody is about Nachshon. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God done trouble the water. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot oseh fele oseh fele. We're gonna wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's done trouble the water. Nora tehilot. Oh, say, oh, say,
Music sounds really good tonight. It's nice. So we continue as we think about this theme of dark descending. It's already really descended with the Hashkivenu, and we turn to page 42. And the Hashkivenu says, at these times when we feel the most fragile or vulnerable, mentally or physically, that we ask for a shelter of peace over us all. So if we call them pods now, but if you're sitting with your family or people that you came here with, feel free to put your arms around them and give them a little bit of that physical comfort as well as the music that we sing together.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor Seitenu Uvoenu Lechaim Shalom Me'ata ve'Adonai. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom b'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom b'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Shalom, shalom, shalom. We're singing for shalom, shalom, shalom. Let there be shalom, shalom, shalom. Oh, shalom, shalom, shalom.
Feel free to keep your arms around each other. We continue as we think of those people in our community who need a mishaberach, a prayer for healing. And I'm going to read the healing list now and then ask you if you have anyone who you'd like to add to say to this blessing for anybody who has a need of body or mind or spirit. We take into our hearts Frank Friedman, Rusty Holden, Lauren Knickerbocker, Micah Goldsmith, Lou Aronow, Harold Miller, Isaac Judah Dan, Art Pilch, Donna Linzer, Lauren Van Horn, Caroline Kreitzberg, Stu Landisberg, Celia Landisberg, Gordon Robinson, Miriam Lipton, Gary Glassell, Cindy Redburn, Miriam Bat Basya Vebinyamin, Ruth Chaim Bat Idit, Esther Bat Avraham Vebracha. If anybody has the name of someone else they're thinking of who needs some healing.
Serena Saltis. And if you'd like to join me on page 253, we can sing the blessing for healing, Misha Beirach. Misha Beirach Avotenu Mikor Habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Beirach Imotenu Mikor Habracha Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We continue with the Amidah, and we're going to rise together on page 46, and we'll do the Petichta, the opening together, and then you can feel free to complete the Amidah yourself with your own silent reflection, and then feel free to be seated.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tekilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, let my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Ve'Elokei avotenu v'imotenu, Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Ve'Elokei Yaakov, Elokei Sarah, Elokei Rivka, Elokei Rachel, Ve'Elokei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Konei Hakol, Ve'Zocher Chastei Avot ve'imachot, U'meivi Geula livnei v'neichem, Le'ma'an Shemo b'yahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshe u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Lechoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaKashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar. Michamocha b'gevurot u'midomelach, Melech memit u'mechaye u'matzmiach Yeshua. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחייך הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Page 164. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Thank you for that beautiful Shalom Rav cantor, Addie. Just before services, I was looking at the temple Facebook page. I was looking to make sure that we had everything also set up because we have the 8:30 service tonight, and it's ugly Hanukkah sweater night at the 8:30 service. And I was, feeling like, wait, what? Didn't Hanukkah end? But the ugly sweater part of the holiday season never ends, and so we're having that. And I looked at the Facebook page. Oh, by the way, kids told me this year they liked Hanukkah so much they celebrated it also on Monday night, and they called it Ninekah. So I looked at the Facebook page, and for some reason, just under tonight's service was a Shabbat that popped up on my feed and on the temple feed that was broadcast over a year and a half ago, sometime in April 2020. And it felt like it was 10 years ago. And I looked at the picture, and there was Cantor Addie's house, and Rabbi Rodich's house, and my house, and we were all, we had our computers on and the cameras on, and we had our phones at the same time, and we were all talking to each other. We're trying to live. Is this on your Facebook? Is it my Facebook page? And this is going on, and Cantor Addie and I'm looking at her. She's texting me. Finally, we heard the voice of God. It was Eric Schoen. He was also on, and he said, "You guys, we've been live for 2 minutes." And I just looked right at the camera, and I'm looking right at the camera now, which is that camera, and right, we are live streaming still, 22 months later, and I just said, well, Shabbat Shalom, and now you know what goes on right before services, which is us frantically trying to make sure that we're connected. And when I looked at that a few hours ago, it seemed just, how long ago was that? I've kind of lost track of time, and it seemed totally unreal and totally surreal and real at the same time. And then I felt a little confused, like, how long has COVID been going on? Days and weeks and months. It's confusing. And I know how long 22 months is in regular time, but this seems much longer. And sometimes days and places and people and times seem to blend into each other in a way that is confusing. I don't think it's just that I've gotten like 17 years older in the last 22 months, but I think it's for everybody, no matter how old you are, how confusing it is. They've been hard days for a lot of us, and even on days that seemed less hard, there are still hard parts of those days. And I've thought about when this was going to end, often, and when we were going to get to stop wearing masks, and when would that sense of normalcy come back? When will it be more easy than hard every day? And I guess I go back and forth and think, well, this really is normal now. This is our new normal. And we're all grappling with it. Normal, where we continue to just wake up every day and push forward, to live our lives, do the things we can all still do, work, play, take our kids to school, travel a little bit, grieve our losses, heal from our illnesses, attend virtual events to stay in touch with the people we love around the country who we can't see all the time. We try to keep our heads and our hearts above the water and find a parking place at the temple for Shabbat. We try to just have Shabbat, which is a big blessing and a big normal part of our week. And I also wonder a lot about what we and the generation that's been living during COVID, in COVID, what we're all going to say about this time in the after. I think about that a lot. I think it depends on your age and stage in life, what this time is like for you. But what will the stories be like from these years when we look back? What will we have learned, and what do we want the next generation to know that we learned from this time that made us stronger or better or more resilient? How can we be resilient when there continues to be terrible news every day? How do we keep working to preserve democracy? And even more importantly, how do we keep the health of our planet central? How do we keep working on that? When I was thinking about this new normal and what we continue to go through, I thought about what I said tonight at the Michamocha, like who are the stories, the people that have lived through really, really hard times, and still we look at them and they seem like a compass to us. They give us hope, and they help us keep the faith. And I thought a lot tonight about what Joseph's life was like. If we're going to tell this story, the story of how we lived through this, how will it have gone? What about the Joseph story, which is this week's portion? What did the generations after Joseph take from his resilience? Now, the story of Joseph's life, we're in the portion where it comes to a climax, where he finally reveals to his 11 brothers that he's alive and he's their brother in Egypt. And a lot of times we focus on the part where he's the viceroy of Egypt and everything is great and he's triumphant and he's a leader, but he did not have an easy life. He was the dream interpreter who channeled God's will. He was that viceroy. He was the brother who saved his entire family and helped with the future redemption of our people. But he also had a really, really hard beginning. So Joseph was born to his father Jacob's favorite wife, Rachel, who later died in childbirth, giving birth to his brother. That was the beginning of his life. Just stop there for a second. His mother died in childbirth with his brother, and he was his father's favorite son. Anybody here have a favorite kid? When the kids are raising their hands. If you're a parent, you know it's not a great thing to show any kid favoritism in any way. But that was the beginning of Joseph's life. That kid is not parents' favorite right now, just for that moment, okay? She will be later. Jacob's favoritism made Joseph's life miserable. He would laud the favoritism over his brothers. He would tell them the incredible dreams that he had about them bowing down to him. And his father, remember, Jacob gave Joseph, what was that gift that he gave him? Right, the coat of many colors, right? The ugly sweater, exactly. The coat of many colors. And Joseph knew how much his brothers hated him. That almost sounded like Christmas music. I told you, it's a strange 22 months. So let me just fast forward and say, Joseph, his brothers pretended to kill him. They told his dad that he was dead. He had been eaten by a wild beast. They dipped the coat into blood. They sold him to slavery. He went into slavery, and then he was put into jail because the wife of his master accused him of impropriety. And he spent a lot of time incarcerated in prison until he realized that there was something else going on. And he wasn't just a bratty younger brother. He wasn't just his dad's favorite. He hadn't just had a really, really crummy childhood. But he realized that there was something else guiding his dream interpretation. And he recognized that it was a higher power, what we call God today. And what I want to focus on is the moment when Joseph says to his brothers, "It's me. We've spent this entire time apart from each other. I'm now the viceroy of Egypt. I'm going to save our family, but I have to come to terms with the fact that you tried to kill me, you sold me into slavery," and he has to tell his brothers this in private. So he closes the doors. He has all the Egyptians, the Pharaoh leaves, and this is what the dramatic conclusion to these years of deceit and mourning and yearning come to. It's actually one of the most emotional moments in the entire Torah. I want to read it to you. Joseph could no longer control himself before all of his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone withdraw from me." So there was no one else about when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. His sobs were so loud that the Egyptians could hear, and so the news reached Pharaoh's palace. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still well?" But his brothers could not answer them. They were so dumbfounded by the reality that he was still alive. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come forward to me." And he said, "I am your brother Joseph, who you sold into Egypt. Do not be distressed or reproach yourselves because you sold me here. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you." It's this climactic moment and the turning point when all of the relationships that had been on hold, all of the distances that had been created, all of the lies that had been told were suddenly real and exposed, and they could repair them. And in that moment, Joseph cries and sobs and wails. Is there anybody else who's crying and sobbing and wailing in the Torah? There is? Who is it? But not that intensely.
Want me to tell you the one I told you today?
Yeah.
When Esau and Jacob, who were also, it was also a brother rivalry situation, and when they finally made peace with each other, one moment, please. When they finally made peace with each other, they went to hug each other and they kissed each other in the neck. It's really, really beautiful the way the Torah describes it, that one brother kissed the other brother's neck. And there's this, has anybody ever seen that spot in the Torah here? I'm going to tell you it's a very cool thing. It doesn't in nowhere else in the Torah does this happen, but above the word, and he kissed him, there are these little, like, beautiful, like, diamond dots right above the word, vayishkehu, and he kissed him. And these beautiful, I haven't researched this yet, but just above that word, nowhere else in the Torah, that in this moment of reconciliation, it's really beautiful. And they're crying.
Mm-hmm. I think only one of them is crying in that story, but we'll get to that. I think it's only Esau who's crying. But it's not often. Of course, anytime I say something isn't happening, Cantor Addie's like, 4 times it happens, Rabbi. So
yeah, there's
yes?
many moments of crying.
Yeah, there's many moments of crying, but this was the most intense one, is what I'm trying to say.
What about Hannah? I mean, that's
that's
huge.
true. Hannah, that's true. Okay, this is not a sermon about crying. It's a sermon about resilience and about Joseph. So, and by the way, Jacob and Esau, after the kiss, they go their separate ways. They can't journey on together. They have to live separately. Joseph saves his brothers Tocheses. He saves the whole generation. And he realizes that they have to move together. They cannot be separated anymore. And they can't go on different paths, that they have to live together as a family after all this separation. And what I take from that is I think that Joseph in that way is a superhero because he has lived a life of suffering. And like Joseph, we can experience pain, disruption, and loss and still feel like we have faith, still feel like there's something else potentially that's guiding us. And you might call it God, or you might not know what to call it, but you can feel it. And Joseph felt it. And when I ask you, can you see love? You can feel it, right? You could feel love. And you might not be able to see God, but you can feel the intention in yourself to reach out and hold somebody's hand when they're crying, or to express love, to feed the hungry, to offer comfort or companionship, to listen, to give tzedakah. All those things, the way that we can alleviate people's suffering are the ways that we feel God. And so when I think about the ways that we live in darkness today and the paths of light, I just think back to the last 4,000 years. And I'm glad we have the story of Joseph, somebody who lived through a lot of darkness, came into the light, and pulled us through. And so if there's a way today or tomorrow, at any point through this darkness, that you can pull somebody else through, and we're all going to need it. Every single one of us is going to need somebody else to pull us through a very hard time, and probably already has. May we rely on that sense of light that Joseph brought to our people. Amen. We're going to continue now on page 282, and we rise for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל חמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום חכו יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Our thoughts now turn to the power of memory. And there are people here who have very recently lost a loved one, and we are here to comfort you in our community. And there are people here who lost people many, many years ago, and still that grief comes forward. And so we hold all of you as we call out the names of those who we remember tonight. The Shloshim, of whom the first 30 days are Roderick Dowling, Blanche Rose Greenberg, Linda Roy Braverman, Monica Lowenthal Butchnick, Lawrence Goldberg, and the yahrzeit, the anniversary of our dearly departed loved ones, includes Albert Baer, Leon Barlas, Saul Barsman, Julius Block, Belle Blumenthal, Margaret Boyd, Hannah Kane, Francisco Caravallo Strober, Roger Cohn, Velma Dorfman Cohn, Nancy Bend Ehrlich, Stuart Erlanger, Rima Faber, Woody Fendrick, Doris Fingerhood, Ruth M. Fireman, Randy Geller, Beverly Gold, Melvin Goldberg, Harry Golden, Richard Goldman, Alan Saul Goldstein, Leona Green, Hugh Greenblatt, Gertrude Gruenberg, Walter A. Haas, Ann Goldberg Haas, Samuel F. Hacker, Fred Hall, Jack Leland Himes, Ronald Isaacson, Thelma Eisenberg, Irochim Israelovich, Myron Joschel, Susan Kaplan, Hannah Katz, Leon Kaufman, Dorothy Klein, Daniel Edward Koshlin Sr., Marilyn Langer, Mark Leff, David Lur, Philip Levinson, Dorothy C. Levy, Francis Newman Lilienthal, Samuel Marsh, Leslie Millens, Michael Moosman, Leslie Munzer, Louis F. Nathan, Walter Newman, Frank Newman, Eleanor Norton, Aaron Olevsky, Bernice Ortenberg, Joseph Pincus, George Piness, Jenna Pearl, Joseph Rothstein, Charles Sabis, David Sable, Barbara Safran, Linda Scher, Nathan Schlesinger, Eunice Schlesinger, Ed Schneider, Jane Semmel, Max Sexter, Fern Shapiro, Paul Siegel, Marjorie Siegel, Theodore Smolin, Ann Solomon, Hiram Spinrad, Eddie Steiner, Leslie Susser, Ronald Sturtz, Milton Tick, Mitchell Title, Georgina Carpio Velasquez, Shirley Vogel, Stephen Robert Walder, Jeanette G. Winetsky, and Arlene Shapiro Wyseth. If anyone else has lost a loved one or is observing yahrzeit, please feel free to stand up and say that person's name out loud. I'd invite our mourners to now rise. Our mourners, please rise. And the rest of the congregation, we rise together in support of our mourners, and we turn to page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha b'richum. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Say
Shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei teifel, ve'imru
Talmud teaches us about darkness and light, that when there's a place where there is a funeral procession and a wedding procession and only one can pass, we always let the wedding procession pass first because there's always going to be time for sadness and darkness and grief, but we need to celebrate. And so that's why I think it's so beautiful that every Shabbat we come together, we have this great tikvah, this great hope for our future in our B'nai Mitzvah students. And so I'm going to invite them up to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi now.
Yeah, and we can join together in the Kiddush. It's on page 5, I believe, right? They'll appreciate our voices with them. And you're going to hold up the Kiddush cup while you chant.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu.
Shabbat kodsho, be'ahava u'b'ratzon nitchilanu, zikaron b'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehillah le'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'siyat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodeshecha be'ahava u'b'ratzon hinhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat lechaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi zachem mitcharetz b'te'avon.
Shabbat shalom. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Yahoseh shalom b'broma. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshei ve'imru Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank
Please,
you to our musicians
our wonderful
tonight.
musicians, please take your prayer books back where you came from, and we hope you'll come back soon. Shabbat shalom and
Shabbat
Mazal
shalom.
Tov.
Okay, put my mask on.